Let's take a look at how we can use an imported scan for reference in an assembly. So I'm going to go to the insert and I'm going to select the insert mesh. I'll go and select the file that I want to insert and I'm going to select appropriate units. Now, I don't know how this was scanned, but if it doesn't come in at the right size, the most common issue is a mismatch between the units because the original file was unitless. So either the and or the document units and the insertion units, you have to get those right. But I'm going to assume that neither is right and we have to scale after the fact. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay to that. So I see my scan that I have brought in. I'm going to turn on the visibility of the origin. So the origin is buried down in there somewhere. But let's look at what the datums would be on our part. So most likely the important datums would be the bottom of the part, the assembly, where it would be bolted to some other components of the machinery, and the location of this pulley shaft or the output shaft of this engine. If I go over here to the bodies folder, we see that there's a warning on this. It says the mesh is not closed. So this is a scan. So there's some locations in the scan that the scan is missing, like right all of this in here. And then, of course, because the scan is missing in there, it doesn't have a positive volume. That is, there's not an enclosed watertight envelope on this. Now, if I were going to do some editing of this, I would probably do that in Autodesk Mesh Mixer rather than in Fusion 360, and then bring it into Fusion 360. But we don't need to really do any editing on this, so I'm going to just use it as it is. Now, the problem, it isn't oriented correct. And so I'm going to go up here to the move and I'll select move, and then we're going to orient this the way we want it. So I'm going to set my pivot point, or actually let's select the object. So I'll select the object, and Fusion automatically sets a pivot point inside of the object, but that pivot point isn't relative to something that is useful to us. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to set pivot point, and then I'm going to select the origin. Now here's the most common issue that people have is at this step, after selecting that pivot point, you need to say done. Now I'm going to go to one of the common views, either it's top, front, or right side. Let's go to the front, and I'm going to rotate this around, and I'll just try to get it approximate at first. Now you could put in some exact angles, but at first I'm not even concerned about exact angles. I'm just going to set that approximate. Now I need to reset my pivot point, so I'll set the pivot point again as the origin, and once again, don't forget to hit done. So I click done, and let's look at this from, say, the side view, and I'm going to then rotate this around. And so I'm trying to get this horizontal from all three top, front, right side views. So I'll go to the top view, and I'm going to reset my pivot again. So I'll reset pivot. I'll select the origin. Don't forget to select done. And then I'm going to rotate this around. I'm trying to get that shaft more or less straight up and down. And so just clicking, I might not be able to get the angle that I want. So I might want to type in some precise numbers. But here's my x-axis, and here is my rotation. And I'll try to rotate that, and that was too much. So let's try -2 degrees. And that looks pretty good there. It may or may not be where I want it. Then I'm going to go to another view, and I think I've got it pretty much the way I want it in that view. Maybe could rotate that up a little bit in this view. And so I'm going to reset my coordinate system again. I might not have needed to do that in this case. Make sure you say done, and then I'm going to rotate this. I'm trying to get it to, this is horizontal. That's a little bit too much. Let's say -2 degrees. That looks pretty good there. Now I also want to put the location of the base of this object in a good location relative to the origin. And so I'm going to drag this. I'm going to get hold of this square. I'm going to drag this up. And so I want that more or less horizontal. It might be better to look at it from a different side here. And actually, so it's obscured behind there, so that's caused me a little bit of issue there that I want to be able to see that base. So it's still just a little bit high. I might rotate this a little bit more. In fact, I think I will rotate that a little bit more. So I'll set my coordinate system, and I'm going to rotate this just a little bit this way. And what I forget to do there, I forgot to hit the done. Make sure you hit the done, and then I'll rotate that a little bit. Let's say -1 degree. And I might, just keep getting this until you get it where you want it. And then I'm going to move this up, and I'm going to try to get that about like that. But I also want to orient the PTO, or the takeoff shaft. And I kind of would like to have that along an axis. I mean, you can put it where you want it, but I want it along an axis. So I'm going to drag this over here. And actually, somehow I got this too high. See, I want to get this right along that axis, like that. And let me check this from another view to make sure that I don't have this too high again. And let's check it from, and you might put in a sketch at some point to help line this up. And be careful, because I am maybe moving it in 3 directions, or in 3D space, in a way that's confusing. Now, I'd like to see that axis from the top view. It's kind of hard to see right there, but I want it on that axis too. And let me just, to be sure, I'm going to put this back on the origin on the x-axis. If I have trouble, I'll just say okay to that, and I'm going to just edit that move again, and I'll reset my axis to the origin, and then I'm trying to move. And what I forget to do there, I forgot to do the done. And so I have this shaft, the takeoff shaft, oriented along the x-axis, and then also then from the bottom, I have the bottom of the part oriented along this axis. I don't know what axis I said before, and along this axis. Now, once I've got it lined up where I want, of course, at some point, if you need to scale it, Go ahead and scale it, and then you may need to move things around again. But once I have it where I want it, I'll create a couple features on here. And so, and these will just be for reference. So I'm going to say maybe this is the base plate of this motor right here, and go ahead and dimension that relative to the origin point, and then extrude that. Let's go ahead and extrude this. So I'm going to rotate around, and I'm going to extrude that. So we don't need to have the entire motor modeled. We can just model a portion of it, and then that gives us a size for placing everything else into the assembly, or reference. So we're just doing this as reference. And then I may do this pulley, and this is a little bit at an angle. Again, it's just a reference, so it doesn't have to be perfect when you are modeling this. You're just trying to get it in close for the picture. You want your geometry to be perfect, and you can use your calipers to measure all this geometry to make it perfect. I'm just going to put it in here by eye, and you can then put your dimensions on as necessary. And I'm just going to get really careless kind of with this now. I want to go halfway. I may put a vertical constraint on this, and I probably put it so that I could put arcs in here. With your calipers, you can measure and get. I don't really like that, so I'm going to delete it and put it in again. But with your calipers, you can get it to precise geometry. All we're looking for right now is well, actually, we do want this precise. So you can measure this. You can measure this. The rest of this is just for reference. And I'm going to change this line to a center line. And actually, I just changed it to construction. I meant to change that to a center line. So I'll change that to a center line. and then I could do a revolve. And so I made this a little bit too big, so you make it smaller, make it the size you want. Let's turn off the, so here I have my base of the motor and the takeoff pulley. And then the rest of this, I just need to make sure I don't interfere when I'm building my other components, that I don't interfere anywhere with this motor. And then I save this, and then to use this in my assembly, I just insert this as a reference into the assembly and then orient it as I need it.